I've traveled to a lot of major cities in America, and in many of them, the halal options are mainly desi or Arab, with some burgers, with some hot chicken. But here in Houston, you can get halal food from like countries that are in 5 different continents in the world.
The Halal Food Podcast by Halalrun, the #1 guide to halal eating options in the US, Canada, and the UK. Welcome. On our podcast, we feature inspiring and accomplished Muslims in the West from all backgrounds. We talk to them about their lives and about the halal restaurants where they love to eat. Our guest today is Zain Mohammed, who is based in Houston after having grown up in Saudi Arabia. He was one of the first halal food bloggers, having started over 10 years ago, and actually started on a real website before moving over to Instagram. He has over 10,000 followers on Instagram and blogs under the handle The Halal Reviewer. Zain has some great recommendations for places to eat in Houston and shares a lot of them with us. If you enjoy this episode, make sure to hit that like button. And now let's jump over to the interview. Zain, assalamu alaikum, and thank you for being on our podcast.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. You are one of the original halal bloggers. Why don't we jump right into it? When did you start blogging and how did you get started?
So I started in February 2013, actually. I was a freshman in college.
10 years anniversary?
Yeah. This past February was my 10-year anniversary. And so my love for food came from growing up in Saudi Arabia. So, everything there was halal. I really enjoyed eating out growing up. And it's not just like Arab food or desi food. It's like a wide variety. So I thought to myself, why not write about it? Like one of my main inspirations for like writing was Anthony Bourdain. I used to watch his programs in high school when I was in high school of him traveling and trying all the local stuff and all that. And that inspired me. But in high school, I didn't have a car. And then when freshman year came, I had a car. I just didn't have the time because I was just so focused on my study. And then one day in the spring semester, I was in the university, like one of the university common areas, and the place in front of me had halal options. So I thought, you know what? Why not give it a shot? And this was before I made my Instagram. I had a full-fledged website before I started out the Instagram. The full-fledged website started in February. The Instagram started in October. And it was actually my sister who came up with the handle, The Halal Reviewer.
And so, in your 10 years blogging, over multiple platforms, what are the changes you've seen in the Houston halal scene that you've been covering so closely?
Oh, the changes have been monumental. Like, the availability of halal has gone up so much. And not only the availability, but the diversity as well. I've traveled to a lot of major cities in America, and in many of them, the halal options are mainly desi or Arab, with some burgers, with some hot chicken. But here in Houston, you can get halal food from like countries that are in 5 different continents in the world. And when I was a freshman, that wasn't really the case.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All over the country, there have been explosions of halal options, which is great for everyone. So the other thing that's changed since you started blogging is there are a lot more bloggers, right? You were one of the first, and now there are lots, and it's a great, vibrant community of halal bloggers. So who are some of the other bloggers or newer bloggers whose work you like? Who do you check out, and who do you think is doing good work?
Well, for me, I made friends with one of them, Mr. Fusion Eats. His name is also Zain. He's based in Houston as well. I like his pictures. I like the stuff that he does, and he's a very nice guy. Another person is Adventures of Shaq and B. They're 2 friends. One of them is in Houston, the other is in Chicago. We've been friends for about 5 years now. And, every time one of them comes down from Chicago or I go out, we always meet up. We always grab a meal, catch up on life, and all that. And then there's a Foodies Chronicle. Her name is Serena. She also does social media marketing, and I like her content a lot. She's also a good friend of mine now. Anything that happens, if I need help, I always reach out to her. And there's an Asian blogger from Laos called, he goes by T. His Instagram is Taste by T. Very nice guy. I've met him a few times. We've always chatted whenever we meet up, try the food, and everything goes well.
Wow, those are some great blogs for all of us to check out. And we love hearing about how bloggers know each other or meet or collaborate, because it's such a vibrant community, and you're all doing such an important task for all of us who are trying to find great halal places to eat. So that's great to hear. So Zen, when someone comes down to Houston for the first time, right now, I haven't been to Houston since the 80s. I am long overdue for a trip. What are the top places in the Houston area that you tell them that they need to check out for food? Your top recommendations to a first-time visitor?
So Texas is known for Texas barbecue, and two of the main meats in Texas barbecue are beef ribs and beef brisket. The fortunate thing is that we have two places in the Houston area that are known for their great ribs and brisket. One of them is called Pinkerton's Barbecue. They use Creekstone, and they have had the halal option since 2017. And in fact, they're so popular that when Isla was in Houston, the line was out the door and it was full of Muslim customers. Like people from all over the country, they came on down to Pinkerton's to try the ribs and brisket, since it is a Texas specialty. And the great thing is that the owner is not Muslim, but he knows about the halal practices. He knows about, cutting it, smoking it separately, using a clean board to cut, using clean utensils and whatnot. So when you ask for halal, he would bring out a fresh brisket and cut for you. And the barbecue sauce is all halal as well. And they'll let you know that, okay, this is bacon in it, don't have it. This is chicken stock in it, don't have it as well. So, and one thing I wanted to say change is that a lot of non-Muslims have also become aware of halal because of just how much it has grown in America, especially in Houston. So Pinkerton is one. Now, if you're willing to venture out to the suburbs, there's a place called Chuck Wagon Barbecue. They also have ribs and brisket, but they also have like halal chicken. They have halal pastrami as well, and they also have, on select days, they have halal sausages. And it's the same thing, cooked separately, smoked separately, and clean knives, clean board. And they've been doing very well in the Muslim customers as well. Now, for other spots that I recommend, one of them is called Bismillah Cafe. For me, it's a Pakistani Muslim-owned restaurant here. They have some of the best burgers, and they have these really good spicy tenders called the 10 chicken tenders. You also get those in wings. You also get them as a sandwich. And he also owns an Asian place called Wakana, which is also really good. Another burger place I recommend if you want to be near downtown Houston and all the main attractions is Stanton City Bites. That's a place I've been going to since I was in college. And they've been doing halal for 10 years now. And since they started halal, current, past, and future UA students, they go down to Stanton City Bites and they order all their halal burgers, and they regard it as some of the best burgers in town. The owners are Asian, but they know all about halal, which is great, especially in a political climate like what we're in right now. Now, if you want to stick to Desi, because I know there are people who only want to eat Desi wherever they go, if we're being honest, there's a place called Aga's Restaurant and Catering. That, for me, is like one of the top restaurants, and that is the one Desi place that I would take a first-timer. They're known for they have an amazing kebab karai. They have an amazing Peshawari chicken, but the main thing they're known for is their goat chops. And a fun fact, when Islam was in town, the line was through the block, and one of the days they sold out. And on the weekends, it can be a 45-minute to 1 hour wait for tables. And when it's Ramadan, they have expanded it so much because of just how high the demand is to eat in there. And even the big banquet hall that can accommodate like 300 people, it's packed, especially in Ramadan and weekends. So those are some of the places. There's a lot more, but in the interest of time, I would say this because Houston again has so much to offer, and a lot of the halal stuff we see here, you won't find it elsewhere in most of the major cities in America.
Yeah, well, thank you, Zen. Those are some awesome picks. I'm sure very much appreciated by our audience who's planning to make a trip to Houston. So, the last question I want to ask, right? Our podcast is all about Muslims celebrating other Muslims and Muslims celebrating the community. Who are some of the Muslims in the West, in North America, in Europe, who you admire, not necessarily in the food world that we're all in, but just generally, who do you admire? Who do you think are great, examples for the community, and why?
So I have a few actually. One of them is the journalist Mehdi Hassan. I've had the privilege of meeting a couple of times. A very nice man, and he taught me how to, deal with people who give you a hard time. There are these when he used to be with Al Jazeera. He used to have a show where he would speak at the Oxford Union, and he would grill people like politicians, and then he would say things like he would put like actual quotes that they said. Like for example, on this day, just a few months ago, you said X Y Z. Can you please explain that? Even though you're saying ABC right now, and that inspired me because there's some people. What a phenomenon that I've seen in my 10 years of blogging is there are people who are like, oh, why would you eat at somewhere that has pork or alcohol? But then you do a little digging and you realize that they go to business dinners with clients, with employees at such places and that have pork and alcohol, but only eat seafood. So that inspired me like, hey, why do you go to, let's say, Cheesecake Factory and have a grilled salmon for your anniversary if you're telling me that, why would I go to such places? Something like that. And and I know he has a podcast, so Loki, I hope one day, inshallah, that I would be on his podcast. Another Muslim I admire is Hassan Minaj. He was like the first real Muslim celebrity I've seen on TV, and he really likes Houston's food as well. There have been times when he made stuff about Houston's food. Hopefully, one day I could have like a sit down, have a meal, chat with him, just a casual talking, and I also want to show him Texas barbecue, how we Muslims do Texas barbecue and burgers and all that. Another is Samir Sarmas of Samir's Eats. He was one of my main inspirations of starting the blog. He was the first real person to use social media to show halal restaurants. So in Jersey and Philly, he was actually one of my inspirations. I've met him a few times. Very nice guy. I've dined with him on a couple of occasions, which is also really cool. Now, one other person I admire is Imam Umar Salman. He's a very, very sharif man. He also, helps the stuff. He always posts gems, some of the stuff, and uplifting people, uplifting Muslims and all, which is something we need nowadays. Another person like that is Sohaib Webb, Imam Sohaib Webb. I've had the privilege of meeting him a few times, and one sitting at a table at the same time with him at one time. Very nice man. He's a big food guy like me as well. So, great foodies think alike, basically. So, those are some of the Muslims that I admire. Present day Muslims that I admire.
Those are some great picks. Zen, it has been awesome having you on the podcast. I'm sure our audience appreciates all that you've shared, all your recommendations. And once again, speaking on behalf of the Muslim community who, is always looking for great halal places to eat, we appreciate the work you do in spreading the word and making people aware of great options. So thank you for everything. And thanks for being on the podcast.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thanks for joining us. Halalrun is the #1 guide to halal eating options in the US, Canada, and the UK, featuring over 17,000 restaurant listings in over 2,500 cities. You can find us on our website at halalrun.com or on our social profiles. Everywhere we are at Halalrun. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so we can bring you more content just like it. We are here to serve you.